Hey, YouTube, and welcome back. Glad that you're here. Thank you for joining me today. So, in this continuation video number 3 now in our series, Precious Metals Miners, Royalty and Streaming Companies. In today's video, we will cover Wheaton Precious Metals, ticker symbol WPM. If you're interested in investing with me, I'm using the Webull brokerage app. I'll leave a link to sign up for Webull down in the video description section, which will actually net you some free stocks here during the month of March. And in today, we will look at Wheaton Precious Metals by examining their balance sheet, the profit and loss statement, as well as their cash flow. These are important things to look at. And we're also going to check the charts, right, for technical indicators to determine if now is a good time to buy, hold, or sell the stock. And we'll do all that when we return. All right, and welcome back. So as you can see here, the account is off to a great start and currently sits up $40.29 or 5.36% since opening this account on March 5th, 2021, or 15 days ago. Hopefully, if you've decided to follow any of my trades, you are in and have been able to capture the upside of the metals move over the last 2 weeks. Having said that, as a reminder, I am not a financial advisor, and nothing you see here in this video today is financial advice. Please do remember that investing in anything incurs risk. Do your own due diligence in all of your own investment decisions. And everything today you see is once more educational and entertainment only. All right, so Wheaton Precious Metals is also leading the gains in this portfolio so far with my 3 shares up $11.38 or 7.82%. Actually, 4 shares. We did purchase 1 share this week. So what is Wheaton Precious Metals all about? Well, Wheaton offers investors cost predictability, direct leverage to increasing precious metal prices, that's important, and high-quality asset base. Wheaton Precious Metals is one of the largest precious metal streaming companies in the world. The company has entered into agreements to purchase all or a portion of the precious metals or cobalt production from high-quality mines for an upfront payment and an additional payment upon delivery of the metal. That's important too. Wheaton currently has streaming agreements for 23 operating mines and 8 are in development. The company's production profile is driven by a portfolio of low-cost, long-life assets, including a gold stream on Vale's Solabo mine and a silver stream on Newmont's Pensaquito mine. So Wheaton Precious Metals is a streaming company, and we did cover that in episode 2 of this series. Streaming companies do provide funding to mining companies in return for a stream of the metal production. And/or they also have an agreement to buy a certain percentage of the mine's metal production at a significant discount to the spot price of the metal. For example, a 5-year deal could be signed to purchase 10% of a mine's production at 50% of spot price. This agreement greatly reduces the risk a streaming company incurs when lending capital to mining companies, namely in a dropping spot price environment. Okay, so let's start our more in-depth look at WPM, or Wheaton Precious Metals, by looking at their balance sheet. As a refresher, we're going to be looking at the assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity. And the formula for this is assets do equal liabilities plus shareholders' equity. This means that the assets or the means used to operate the company are balanced by a company's financial obligations, along with the equity investment that was brought into the company and any of its retained earnings or profits along the way. It is important to note that a balance sheet is a snapshot of the company's financial position at a single point in time, so let's see how Wheaton Precious Metals is looking. Okay, so here we look at the assets column of Wheaton Precious Metals balance sheet. Starting from the top, you see the years beginning with 2016 and ending with 2020, so the data here is currently about a quarter behind. All values listed in millions, so do keep that in mind. Moving from 2016 to 2020, a few things do jump out to me here with WPM's assets. First, you will notice that total current assets for WPM have increased from 2018 through 2020, up now from $80 million to $202 million in value. You'll also notice that WPM's property, plants, and equipment have come down by about $500 million from 2016, while its cash positions have increased by about $70 million over that time. This appears to be due to the depreciation aspect of Wheaton's property, plants, and equipment over time. As you can see, the accumulated depreciation has increased year over year on their property and equipment holdings. Okay, so here we look at the liabilities column for Wheaton Precious Metals, and what jumps out to me here is the significant reduction in long-term debt, dropping from 1,193,000,000 in 2016 down to 195 million by the end of 2020. That's a big decrease. This is reflected in the bottom line on the liabilities column. As you can see, total liabilities have significantly decreased, which is great news for the health of this company. Now onto the shareholders' equity for WPM, which is the result of subtracting the total liabilities from assets. Here we can see that shareholders' equity is positive, indicating the company has enough assets to cover its liabilities. We do see that the amount of common stock available has increased by 200 million, indicating some shareholder dilution during that time period. We also see large retained earnings on the balance sheet ending 2020 of 2,046,000,000. These are earnings that were not paid to shareholders as dividends, so it's essentially cash on hand. Overall, the company does look healthy with cash on hand, lower debt, and obviously increased equity. All right, so now we'll take a look at the income or the profit and loss statement for Wheaton Precious Metals. Let's see how they're doing. So looking at the most recent statement, you see total revenue has increased up to $1,096,000,000 in 2020, while the company's total operating expense has decreased over the same time period. Wheaton has managed to earn more through its operations while keeping its cost of running the business lower during that time frame, down now from 669 million in 2016 to 576 million in 2020. They've leaned out their operations. The net result of this is an increased profit, with Wheaton bagging $520 million in profit during 2020. All right, so third, we need to look at the company's operating cash flow. Operating cash flow, of course, is cash that is generated from the normal operating processes of the business. Let's take a look here and see if we can see any underlying problems. A company's ability to consistently generate positive cash flows from its daily business operations is highly valued by investors. In particular, operating cash flow can uncover a company's true profitability. It's one of the purest measures of cash sources and uses. Here we look at cash generated by its business operations, which we can see has increased now from 584 million in 2016 up to 765 million in 2020. That's taking a look, obviously, at the total cash from operations down at the bottom of the screen. Now we look at the company's cash from investing activities, and we see that for the most part, Wheaton's investments in 2016 through 2018 generated a net loss, but now in 2019 and 2020, these activities have generated a profit. Wheaton earned $150 million through their investments in 2020. Lastly, on the balance sheet's cash flow statement, we see cash generated from financing activities. Financing activities reports cash level changes from the purchase of the company's own stock or issuance of bonds and payments of interest and dividends to shareholders. This means we are looking for outflows of cash here, and you could see there was some serious cash outflow during 2020, which is attributed to the company paying off 680 million in long-term debt. Okay, so when they made those payments, that was obviously cash flow moving out, which we noticed with the income statement and the company's now stronger bottom line paying off that long-term debt. We also see that the company paid 167 million in cash dividends to shareholders during 2020, which is up from last year and in general is a good indicator if you are obviously a holder of the stock. In conclusion, Wheaton is earning more revenue year over year, spending less to operate the business, has significantly reduced its long-term debt, has now generated positive cash flows from its investment activities, and also hasn't issued any additional long-term debt, all while paying its shareholders more in dividends. These are all great indicators. So now let's move on to the technicals. We know that the health of the business does look good. But today is March 20th, 2021, and is today a good time to buy? Well, let's look to the charts. So moving into the technical analysis and looking at the annual chart for Wheaton Precious Metals, there are a few technical indicators that I want to point out. These are indicators that I make when making a decision whether to purchase whether to take profits in a holding or to just hold a particular stock. First, I will be using the daily chart, so each of these candles you see, whether they are green or red, does indicate the movement in the stock's price over a given day across the last year. As you can see, going back to March of last year, we had the epic sell-off of assets when the COVID-19 lockdowns were being priced into the stock market and total fear had set in. Even safe haven asset gold was largely sold off as investors went to cash in anticipation of more asset losses, as well as to cover any margin calls that were surely alarming from their brokerages as prices on practically all asset classes were plummeting. Wheaton Precious Metals fell to a low of $18.66 during this time. The stock did hit a high of $57.89 in August of 2020. That as gold set an all-time high in spot price, over $2,000 per troy ounce. But as with gold, has since retraced from those highs in gold to a price, as of the time I took this screenshot on March 15th, 2021, of $39.75. Bringing your attention to the red circle, I want to point out a couple of things. First, with each of these stocks in our portfolio, I will be comparing their performance to that of gold's spot price, right? We want to look at the underlying physical asset as compared to the company that's mining it. Okay, so if you look at the teal green color, which is gold's performance during the last year, going back to March 15th, 2020, if you were to buy 1 ounce of gold at spot price, your purchase would be up 5.39% over the year. However, if you were to purchase 1 share of WPM on the same day, your gain would be 29.82%, significantly outperforming gold over the year, okay? Also, the yellow line you see is the performance of the NASDAQ over the same time period. Now, I chose the NASDAQ because in my mind, of the major stock indices, the NASDAQ is about as far away from gold as you can get when comparing assets. Of course, the NASDAQ being mostly comprised of technology stocks like Apple, Google, and the like. So it's important to look at how our money performed over the year, and the NASDAQ was a terrific place to earn during the last year, up 44.8% in the last 12 months, significantly outperforming both gold and Wheaton Precious Metals. Okay, so now looking at the indicators, I like to draw trend lines with all of my positions that I hold, as well as those stocks I am watching, so I can keep a good look at the overall direction of the stock over the time period. As well, here you can see that the trend lines, which are the blue dashed lines above and below the stock candles, indicate that the stock's performance is in the upper direction overall, increasing in value now over the year. However, you will also notice, and this is very important to understand, how I use this chart, that the current price of the stock is below the lower trend line, indicating that over the last 12 months, the stock is currently trading below the trend, which could signal a value opportunity, or in other words, a decent time to buy. This is, of course, if you believe that the overall trend will continue. Full disclosure, I am long on precious metals and these stocks. This is why I'm using the daily chart over a 12-month period to evaluate stocks for this portfolio. I believe that precious metals, especially gold, will continue to rise in value for the foreseeable future on a year-over-year basis. Yes, we will have corrections and also big days with larger gains and larger sell-offs, but we will look for opportunities using these charts to enter into position, hold, and of course, when to take profits where we need to. At the end of the day, I will try to avoid selling. However, this is extremely important. The name of the game is capital appreciation, aka making money, and you only realize those profits when you sell, so there will be some selling from time to time as the market dictates. WPM has largely followed the direction of gold over the year, but as you can see, has mostly outperformed gold this year, and with the stock trading now below the trend line, I largely view this stock as one to buy while the price is still below the range. Okay, so now you see the volume with green bars indicating heavy days of buying and red bars heavier days of selling of the stock. Also, you will see a E and a D in the bubbles along with the volume of this chart. Each of those indicates when a quarterly dividend is paid or when earnings are announced, that being the E. Obviously, these dates have some influence on the price direction of the stock, but the major influence on the value of a company like WPM is, of course, tied to the underlying asset or the performance of physical metals. Here we also look at the RSI, or Relative Strength Index, for the stock. Let's go over the Investopedia definition for this first video so that we can bring everyone who's following this series along with us because we will be covering additional companies going forward, and I won't always take the time to break down what these indicators mean. But in this video, the Relative Strength Index, or RSI, is a momentum indicator used in technical analysis that measures the magnitude of recent price changes to evaluate overbought or oversold conditions in the price of a stock or any other asset. So traditional interpretation and usage of the RSI are that values of 70 or above indicate that a security is becoming overbought or overheated or overvalued. There's other ways to look at it. And this is an indicator that a stock may be primed for a trend reversal or a corrective pullback in price. An RSI reading of 30 or below indicates the opposite. That's an oversold or undervalued condition. Okay, so stocks that are trading at or below 30 may be ripe for a move upward on value. And of course, those stocks that are trading at or above 70, which have been heavily bought recently, driving up the price, that does set up a higher potential for profit taking, which may lead to selling. Obviously, if a stock or stock sector is particularly bullish or bearish, they may remain above or below the 30 or 70 line for a long time, right? If the whole sector is up or down. So using the RSI, it's not always the best tool to use, but currently WPM is trading at an RSI of 56.13, so just above the midpoint, right, of 50. And looking quickly at the RSI, you can see that the trend of late is upward and corresponds with the share price increase over the last couple of weeks as well. So we'll be using the RSI along with trend lines in the MACD, which we'll cover next, to make decisions on entry and exit points of the stock. All right, so the last indicator now in the red bubble we will talk about is the MACD, or the Moving Average Convergence Divergence Indicator. The MACD is calculated by subtracting the 26-period exponential moving average, or EMA, from the 12-period EMA. Okay, so 26 subtracted by 12. The MACD helps investors understand whether the bullish or bearish movement in the price is strengthening or weakening over 2 time periods, which will help an investor in understanding more favorable times to buy and sell. The MACD has a positive value currently. You can see that the yellow or gold line all the way over to the right is now above the blue indicator line. The more distant the MACD is above or below its baseline indicates the distance between the two EMAs, right? So if you're seeing a gap, then they're growing, which indicates pretty rapid price movement over the shorter period. Here we can see that the trend is reversing for Wheaton Precious Metals, which is bullish, and WPM has now moved above the signal line, right, which is a bullish indicator. All right, so finally we move to the price analysis for Wheaton Precious Metals. And based on 12 separate analyst reports, the general expectation is for Wheaton Precious Metals to see a low over the next 12 months of around $39, which is right around the price we're trading at today over the next 12 months. And the upside potential is as high as $68.20. Based on the price of the stock around $40 today and all the indicators that we just looked at, things are looking up for Wheaton Precious Metals shares, which is why I purchased stock in this company. Once more, all of this information is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not investment advice. However, saying all of that, I have decided to personally add Wheaton Precious Metals to my portfolio, obviously based on everything that we're seeing here today. All right, everyone, I hope you liked and learned something new from today's video. Obviously, there are opportunities here to potentially earn higher returns in gold and silver investing in companies like Wheaton Precious Metals. Obviously, given the inflation in the market, increases in the global money supply, and the ability for companies to use leverage, gold is also a natural position as a hedge against inflation. So during these economic times, gold and silver, they tend to perform very well. Once more, thank you for tuning into this video, and we will have another one for you next week covering First Majestic Silver, ticker symbol AG. Once more, have a great weekend. Keep stacking, my friends, and until next time, Florida Stacker, signing out.